Testing 1 2 3. Mic check. Mic and music. Okay. Little Outlam, how are you? Perfect. Great. Glad to hear it. Test, test, test. Oh, it was weird. I accidentally muted the mic, I guess. Did not realize it. My bad. Hello, welcome back to another Mapmaker Monday. How's everyone doing? What you been up to? How was your weekend? Do anything interesting? Dude, I've been having technical issues for like the last month, so pretty much just blame it on me. I had the gremlins, the technical gremlins love to find me no matter where I go. So you can just blame all your woes on me. If it makes you feel any better. Blaming AT&T. I mean, that's a good place to start too. Hey, Chim, how are you? Welcome back. Hope you had a lovely weekend. I did, Volcari. Volcahar. Volcahar. Why do I call you Volcari? I don't know why. Volcahar, but thank you for your name both tripping me out and for asking. I did have D&D yesterday, and I'm excited to talk about it if anyone's interested. Gotcha. See, I never really played much Skyrim, so I don't know that stuff. Nope, you're Volkahar. I'm gonna get it right. Always interested. Funny. So it was an interesting session and it was well orchestrated. I think our group's starting to get like a good cohesion going. Not to mention we all were kind of at that level 5 point where, you know, for at least for our people who didn't multi-class, they got a big boost, you know. Our paladin had extra attack now, our cleric had spirit guardians, which our DM did not care for. And I'll be honest with you, you know, me having 2 dice, you know, hit die on my cantrips, I felt so much more damaging, right? I play with the wife, son, and friends. So I play with family and friends. It's a fun event. So my son is he's kind of like he's a multi-class. He's got like a little bit of warlock and then a little bit of sorcerer. So like that sorelock or coffee lock thing. And then hey, Maverick, how you doing? Welcome back. He loves Eldritch Blast. He's rebranded it as Eldritch Burp. And he acts like he just like belches it out every time, like a big bellow. And he, you know, he has fun with it. And then my wife is a Twilight Cleric, just straight Twilight Cleric, no multi-class. And then I am Artificer, is my first level, and then 5 levels into wizard, right? We have a full paladin, and then we have a kind of a fighter rogue, right? And then we have a, what's our new person? They are a sorcerer slash cleric. Interesting build makeup. Anyway, we've got a lot of casters, a good amount of people who can hit stuff and really, you know, make stuff happen. But yesterday's encounter was the big bad encounter. Kind of throwing that out there. Going into the session, we knew we were going to be attacking the big bad's, you know, lair, his final place, his mansion. It's his only respite, really, because we took out his gambling den and took out his docks and captured one of his lieutenants. We essentially have been shredding his business week out, you know, every session. Hey, Haru, how are you? But anyway, I'm going to start stacking into these columbarians while I'm doing storytelling. Might reuse some items from the previous aisle, but overall I'll be kind of trying to use new stuff, so I'm open to suggestions. Anyway, going on. So we kind of had a basic floor plan of the place when we went in, provided by our patron who wanted us to kind of take this guy out. And we decided to attack it, you know, kind of infiltrate from the north through the forest. Upon arrival, we had a perception check, which pointed out that there was really no wildlife. And if we saw any, it looked like it was dead, like bones. So no like flying animals, no. And I think the DM did this so I wouldn't use my familiar to scout, because I do it a lot. But I had a counter to that. I cast invisibility on my familiar. Herbs is a good suggestion, my man. That is a good one. So basically, let's see, there's that garlic, right? That's a good one, the garlic braid. We can make this fit, it'll work. And it's huge. We're gonna have to shrink it. There we go. But garlic flail, right? You had a long D&D night yesterday? Same. I'm kind of talking about that right now. We're doing a little recap, letting everyone know what happened. Excuse me. I still am getting over COVID, sore throat, kind of shortness of breath. My throat kind of just fights me sometimes, so bear with me. There is definitely not anything grisly. I'm definitely not being polar about this. Just know, bear with me. You may not want to hibernate on this information. Anyway. So the big bad was this dude named Rorik the Blackclaw, who essentially, he's our first big bad in our major like arc so far, because we've only been playing a handful of months. We play once a month, right? And I think this is like our 6th or 7th month so far. And in that time, we were framed and put in prison by this dude. Most of our party was. Another one of our party was enslaved by him and was going to be sold to a slave trade. So pretty much every one of us had a grudge with him. And we essentially, all of us were wanting to, you know, get back at this person after we escaped from prison. So we went through a series of, you know, kind of endeavors to dismantle this guy's business a stage at a time. We stole his ledger, which is actually like a very big part of his accounting, and without it, he, you know, doesn't have a lot of information relevant to his business. And it also proves a lot of his misdoing or his misdeeds. So that's another thing we, you know, wanted to steal it for. We captured one of his lieutenants and took over his docks, got all the documents signed into our name. And basically, this guy is, one of his main business interests gone. That was a few previous sessions. But this last session, we infiltrated his mansion. We came in through the back and saw that, hey, thank you for the heart, Mavlik, that there was, a couple guards guarding a back door. I was able to fly my familiar in because it was invisible. And it passed some stealth checks. I don't know why it had to, because it's an owl. They're usually really silent and stealthy to begin with. But, very good hunters of the night, right? Anyway, flew around invisibly, got kind of a lay of the land, told everyone that there was a few giants, there was a couple guards, so we got to either, attack fast or strategic or try and sneak around, but it would be very hard to sneak around and not get seen, right? So we essentially just went right into combat using surprise round, which gave us a huge advantage. We were able to focus fire, one of the, 2/3 of the party focused fire on a giant, and then the rest of us kept the other people approaching at bay. There was 2 human guards and then another giant running in. I webbed that group to keep them from getting close, and then our kind of frontliners took out this big giant dude that looked essentially like Bane from like the Batman in like the 90s, like the more traditional Bane, like the luchador with all the weird stuff, but he had like a crazy mask, almost like, I don't know if anyone's seen Beastmaster, the weird kind of like guys with the masks they have that like, they make them all big and fight against them. Anyway, long story short, they had like chains and big spiky masks, and they were pretty intimidating, but we were able to gang up on one, take him out pretty much before he had a chance to do anything major. And then the other one was webbed and was contending with that. And then the 2 humans had ranged attacks, so they were like shooting with their bows or crossbows or whatever. But we were sitting behind a rock, all the casters, and we'd poke our heads out, cast a spell, put our head back behind cover so we couldn't get hurt. Basically let our frontliners contend with the giant, and then they moved over to the edge of the web. And then we started contending with those guys. We took them out systematically. And before you knew it, we had taken over like this whole like back area, pretty much silently without anyone noticing we were there. Myself and the kind of rogue dip, we did an investigation check on the back door, and we discovered that there was a bunch of traps on it. So rather than just jump in and start fighting, we opted to not do that, right? And I was just thinking, like, this building has a roof, right? Why not we go up on top and go from there? But before we did, my son thought of something brilliant. We have this item that we had recovered a few sessions ago. It's a dagger, it's sentient, called the Lady in Red. And it has the ability to track a target that we've seen before through walls up to 60 feet. So we asked the Lady in Red if it knew where Rorik was, and we basically were able to pinpoint his position in the center of the compound. And we're thought, well, let's just get up on the roof instead of go through these traps and go through doors and then go up over, right? Can't go through it, can't go under it, must go over it. Anyway, so we went in through the top. We didn't have good stealth checks, so we didn't get a surprise round on the guy, but he was in a courtyard in the center of his compound with a couple of displacer beasts as his guards. He saw us, freaked out, immediately tried to bargain with us, and we knew he had nothing to bargain with because we dismantled his old business. So we were like, nah, man, you're gonna have to contend with us. So yeah, we took him out like a little bit at a time, chipped him away, but he had legendary actions and legendary resistances. The guy was like going at us hard, resisting everything. I opened with a hold person, trying to get him, and so we could just gang up on him and take him out. Didn't work. Really irritated me. Anyway, we essentially found out that he didn't have any way to block magic missile. So the casters were hitting him with, I was mainly hitting him with magic missile. And he was trying to flee and run away while we were contending with his, various mob, people that were protecting him, his guards, his mercenaries, whatever. And we realized really quickly after we took out the displacer beast that most everyone there was human. We thought, well, if we could take out the head of the snake, maybe everyone will just run away. So we essentially, used that to our advantage. Tried to capture the guy. Everyone was like chasing him, dashing after him, misty stepping, trying to get closer. And every one of us were trying to attack him and slow him down, doing everything we could. And our cleric had spirit guardians going, was just chewing up things. The displacer beasts were a bit of a pain. Once we took them out, we were able to chase him and kind of stay on him and not let him get away. Thank you, Mavalik. Yeah, honestly, the session was kind of interesting. Let's just say that. I'm trying to give the best recap I can, but to be honest with you, it was so crazy. Everything that happened was so fast, and we ended up we knew we couldn't capture the guy because we were running out of time, right? Our session was like down to 20 minutes after, getting inside, infiltrating, killing a bunch of guys, chasing this guy. So we were like, let's just kill him. We were going to try and capture him, but we can always interrogate the dead, right? With Speak with Dead. So I guess we opted to, do. We took him out, right? And it wasn't our plan to do that. We wanted to capture him and interrogate him, find out more about his operation. Unspeakable Oath. I do see some, I see Callie Sykes. I do see some YouTube stuff coming through. I just remember the Beastmaster movie was on a lot when I was a kid on TNT. And it had like the guy with a couple of ferrets or whatever. And like a hawk or an eagle or something. Anyway. So essentially, because we hiked over the top of the roof, we circumvented most of the traps and the guards. And we used, we didn't go through windows or anything because we assumed they had traps. Like, we had interrogated his lieutenant, and his lieutenant was like, there's traps everywhere, man, be careful. So we kind of anticipated lots of traps, right? Anyway, we ended up killing this guy, which meant we killed the big bad who had done all this damage to us. We took his head. We looted the area, found a few things, and then we were ordered to burn the place down, so we burnt it to the ground. As a reward from our patron, she's commissioning us a bastion. She said we could stay at her place and have our bastion there, or we could get one commissioned, so we're going to get one commissioned. So we get a bastion for taking out the head of her competition, the guy who framed us, and we still get to interrogate him because we have his head. So that's cool. We found it's like a bracer of daggers or whatever. So it just like endless daggers you can throw. And then also that guy had a dagger of venom on him. We gave those to our rogue fighter. Seemed like a good fit with him. And he'd been saying he's been looking for a cool dagger. And so he's like, well, why not? And then he also had a bag of holding on him. Which it was inside of that was a immovable rod. We gave the bag of holding to our fairy cleric sorcerer because she can't carry much, and that gives her an option to carry more. Is that what it is? Bracer flying daggers. That's what it is. Hey, Eric knows exactly what it is. Hey, didn't know you were here, actually. Sorry, I didn't just notice. I just noticed you in chat. My bad, my man. Cat's flying today. Session was really fun, though. But yeah, we got a bunch of little random loot items. I took the immovable rod because I feel like my character will do something neat or funny with it at some point, which to me seems like a perfect use for my character who tends to have like really random solutions for things. Or at least I want that to be how my character is. But yeah, I'm already thinking of interesting ways to use the immovable rod. Oh, nice, Mavalik. So basically, you know, we found some black diamonds that were worth some dosh. We got some loot off the guy, and then we burnt it down. And that was the end of the session. We actually got a level up because that was kind of the milestone end of the session. So not bad at all. We are all very happy that we got to level up. We were talking about that last night. Because we only get to play once a month, right? So having a chance to level up every once in a while is great, but when we get to do it in back-to-back sessions, it's rare and very cool. Because we leveled up last session, I think, mainly because not only did we like go in and infiltrate a place, but we captured the guy and brought him back so we could interrogate him, and then took over his entire like building and got it signed into our name. So I think it was like kind of its own milestone. Anyway. Yeah, Volkohar, I do want that very much so. Things on the DA front have been a little hectic, both in like the private lives of our devs and myself, and then also as we prepare and get closer to Fun with Objects. Fun with Objects was split in two and delayed partially. So things have been kind of going on that have been making it a little bit harder to organize a DA-based game, because the focus is more on making sure Dungeon Alchemist is released in a solid state. All the updates are released in a solid state instead of a campaign, which is something I very much want. Don't get me wrong. Like, I very much want it. It's on my to-do list, and I've actually a little bit spoken with the devs about it, but there's just been so much on everyone's plate. It's been sort of tabled for the temporary thing, but not long. Not long. It's something that will be happening shortly. Hey, Eric, tell us how much you love Spirit Guardians. Carpenter hammer here. You know what? I'll be ready. That's the thing we were kind of prepared for, that, you know, as soon as we start using it, you'll start using it. It's something we're prepared for. Hey, Sasquatch. So this map here is let's just show you the overall, okay? But I think that our cleric was the menace of the session last night. DM was so laser focused on trying to get her concentration down. It was so funny. Oh, that sleep spell was pretty clutch. Honestly, I give you credit. I was gasping when you decided to use it, because I have never seen a sleep spell successfully work. Ever. I've seen it cast dozens of times and it never ever works. So I was just in shock. And I thought it was such a Hail Mary, and when it worked, it was hilarious. And then it was so funny, we actually forgot that our fighter was asleep. All of us were just running over his body, and when we got past him, we're like, oh yeah, shit, one of us should have woken him up. He was the only one it would have worked on, too, because his HP was low enough. Our fighter had been hammered, absolutely hammered. Because there's all these different people, the Displacer Beast, everyone's just putting so many hits into this guy. And the casters prevented how many crits last night? I swear, dude, you rolled so many crits, like 4 to 6 crits last night from DM. He was gonna shred us if we didn't stop it. Like, one of them would have downed the fighter immediately. He would have had to been revived. There was not, there was no saves. It was an interesting night. It was very back and forth for sure, but I'm very happy that we prepared accordingly. We knew we were going into a big fight. So this map that we were talking about, that I got distracted by, is a massive cemetery, and we've been working on it about a half hour a week each Monday in our Mapmaker Monday streams. Started in this corner here and has gone quite extensively. There is some plots here, some private kind of like, you could say they're like sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here. Royal plots, it's fenced off. Here we have a cathedral with a beautiful garden around it where they can host funerals and, do Sunday mass, whatever. There's parking here on the side. And then another kind of custom bespoke burial plots for the various people who have served this clergy over the years. In fact, let's go take a look at it. This is the area we're at, behind the cathedral. I imagine these are like the priests, priestess, clerics, paladins that have served them over the millennia. It is looking cool, Sasquatch. Over here, more of that kind of garden area around the cathedral. I built this bell tower by hand to show that it's possible to build multi-level now, but tricky and requires, a little bit of effort. The garden also kind of laid out the path by hand, so it's a little bit of work here. Come over to that fenced off burial plots and mausoleums, raised, burials. And then over here in the corner, we have, this is, I call this the caretaker's cottage. So the caretaker is the person, who manages this massive cemetery, the gardens, waters things, cuts things, cleans things, helps dig, burials, does a ton of work, but also is a bit of a green thumb and has a beautiful home. Honestly, yeah, the sleep spell was, I like when you cast it, I was like, seriously? I said that out loud. Like, I never do that. And I was so shocked you cast it, but it worked. It worked in your defense. And honestly, I was completely wrong. I said it right after too. I was like, wow, I was wrong. Like, I'll admit it when I'm wrong. I was just shocked. But it definitely seemed like a move of desperation at that point because we were closing in on the big bad. And it reeks of desperation, but no one in the party had counterspell either. Like, our counterspell is silvery barbs at the moment, and some portents, Oh, that's funny, Jim. So you just were IRL affected by it? Let's see here. Cooking. What should I put? I think I'm going to put like a... I like how we have a picture of a baker's hat here, but there's not a baker's hat in here. Is there not one? It always gets me. But yeah, this is essentially what I call what we've aptly called the sardine can. And it's just graves packed in for those who don't necessarily have the funds to have like a massive plot or weren't necessarily in service of the church there. One thing though is I've kind of decided that everyone has the right of a burial in this culture. Though it's up to their friends and family, of the deceased to dig and manage the plot. They can take over a plot, but they have to do all the work. So if it's a big plot, they have to dig it and move the body there. If they don't really have a body, maybe a columbarium's a little bit better option. It's just something simple. Something to remember them by. Maybe. I honestly was considering using my hidden ace to do counterspell, but I prefer having using my hidden ace in ways to help the party, like, you know, like a buff or downtime things, at least for now, because it is kind of a broken thing. I don't want to like abuse it. For those wondering what I'm talking about, I have the Cartomancer feat, which is, you know, it allows you to essentially take a spell that's on your spell list. You don't even necessarily have to know it, and then you can put it into a card and cast it as a bonus action. And rather than abuse that and put something crazy in it or whatever, oh, by the way, I don't think I could put counterspell in it. It's just, you know, a great way to help the party by buffing them extra, stuff like that. See, the thing is I'm going to use it to get spells like I normally wouldn't grab unless, you know, because they're super situational, right? But that's a good way to, you know, I did a what is it? Perpetual Flame or whatever it is. Oh my gosh. The DM gave us this, Eric gave us this coded message with a cipher on it. I haven't had a chance to sit down and mess with it yet, but I need to go through and figure out what it says, because I'm thinking it's hiding a treasure. Treasure. Anyway, start filling this with more stuff. Let's do a witch's hat. I think I'm going to get a little lazy and kind of cross fill some of the columbariums, not completely fill them. That way, time. All your base are belong to us. All your base. They set us up a bomb. Man, that's like OG millennial meme culture. Let's try a couple of urns. Haven't done an urn in a minute. I think the first time I saw that video, I was like in graphics class. We had computers in our graphics lab, and some kid pulled it up and he was like, "You guys got to watch this." And the second I watched it, I was so confused, but I couldn't stop laughing. Ugh. Hey, where's Graphio's chat? I didn't see it come through. Weird. Huh. Oh well. It does happen sometimes. It's doing the split chat thing again. see if I can see it if I scroll up. Oh no. Yeah, I do see his chat up here. Just a little bit of it. Yep. Ah. I see him now. I see some of it. It's coming through. Sorry about that. I think sometimes there's a lot of chat coming across, and so it just buries some of the other ones. Hey, see you later, Maverick. Thank you for being here. Sorry I'm so lame today. Trying to decide what to put in half of these is the difficult thing. Dynamite? Can we put some dynamite? I'm just kidding. No dynamite, Mac. Put one of these doohickeys. Why not? Yeah, I've done a few tools already. Like there was like a hammer here, but yeah, I definitely have been kind of mixing them in. Some of the tools are just really hard to resize to this scale. You know what I mean? So one kind of thing I've headcanoned for this as we've been making this is this society, this city has an absolute reverence for their dead. And there's a lot of stigma and like basically society pressure not to rob the graves of the dead and to, you know, respect the sites of the dead. Now, that being said, there may be nefarious people who, you know, take advantage of that naivete. And we've already added some intrigue in this map in a few places. In here, there's a hatch under this sarcophagus. Put some graffiti there. And then if you come over here, inside the chapel, behind the confessional, notice the confessional like rotates over here. Behind the confessional booth is a secret passage that goes underground. Why would that be, you know, something happening in the graveyard? And then lastly, over in the caretaker's property, very deep in his property, you'd have to go very far back into his property to find this, and look under the pile of manure to find a hidden hatch. Why would the caretaker have a hatch hidden so you know, far away in his property where people may not be able to see it ever? Anyway. Now, that being said, I'm sure, you know, there's some parties that would just immediately start robbing graves, seeing them as just treasure that needs to be dug up. Or, you know, a necromancer might be up to no good here. But that being said, I think overall, the kind of canon I've set, at least, it couldn't be used like that in my campaigns. But I'm sure other campaigns, this place wouldn't last very long at all. I see a lot of players have so many shenanigans. I would love to hear about y'all's players' shenanigans, in fact. I like to think we had some shenanigans last night. By going up on the roof and directly over, we super like circumvented and like all of the traps and a lot of the people we had to fight. I think that's a fun way to approach it. Now, that being said, it's not always the best way to do things. Just worked out in this instance. Okay, let's put like a carpenter hammer right here in this one. Down, nice little hammer there. Goodness. Okay, I think I need to do some things that aren't. Maybe some crystals. If someone got buried with a geode. Whoa. Their geode. Flowers, like a pot of flowers. Oh, you can see like a little potted plant here. But a poinsettia. Call it a day. Boom. I need a break from columbariums for a minute. Let me think. More graves. I'm gonna decide. Yeah, I'll just dig into some graves here. Going this way. Oh no. Man, I am so glad we didn't have to cancel because we were all pretty sick, but the family was mostly in a position where they could like talk and, you know, manage a game this last time. So I was very happy we didn't have to cancel. That's awesome. Our paladin, it is, huh, Cronclar? Our paladin wanted to use his horse to ram the back door traps and like get it, you know, taken out in the process. Shoot. There'd be a grave here. I appreciate the kind words, Cronclor, because I often feel like I'm making very little progress at all. Hmm. Yeah, that's kind of my method to building maps is I like things to feel more custom. You know what I mean? What you been up to, Cronkler? So your paladin often uses their summonable horse sacrificially. Is that what you're saying, Mondu? Devin, thank you so much for the roses. Much appreciated. That's awesome, Cronkler. Honestly, when I try, I can definitely make a quick little map, but this thing is a beast. It is definitely a project. I don't know why I take on maps this big sometimes. 85 by 82 is a monstrous project. Especially when it's all done by hand, it becomes something else entirely. But I do have a mad respect for how quickly and like efficiently community members can push out like really good looking maps. What, Jim? What are you on about? Are you making a pun? You trying to be punny over here? Oh, I get you. To keep us tuning. So I got viewers over on Twitch making puns. They're trying to kill me, a little bit at a time. Hilarious though, because we call this the sardine can, and they said to keep us tuna in. So yeah, I guess if you think about it, me just never ending making a map means people who love watching maps will tune in forever, right? Like their favorite show. But no, that's never my intention, if I'm being honest. I often just kind of get sucked into the narrative of a map and a design, and it takes far longer to build than I often ever think it will. Plus, there's no timeline on this. It's not like I'm building it for my campaign and need it right now. More than anything, it's like I like that I have, the creativity and time to build it into something epic. Oh my gosh. Pronclor, no. No, now we've got TikTok making puns too. What's coming to this stream? Technically Unspeakable Oath, if you got it printed through our partner, like, it's crazy some of the things you can do. Hold on one moment. Oh man, I probably should have saved before I did this. So I've gotten a couple of game mats printed, and they are massive. Massive, massive, massive. Let me see if I can grab one. But if you make a map intended for print and delivery through Kraken War Games, this one here, they do some that are like the size of a car, I swear. Grab one. Grab. But yeah, if you're building a map that you want your players to revisit time and time again, fine. Great. Great you. This thing is like about 2 my height. And this is a neoprene game mat. This is like my green screen justice, but kind of tune out. But it is a massive, massive game mat that fits on my entire kitchen table. And it's like a whole underground catacomb system. This map was made by SAC. But yeah, neoprene is awesome other than maybe the smell, but it's scratch resistant, water resistant. It's ridiculously long lasting. So this map can be used time and time again. That's the ideal use for a map like this. One that you'd be visiting a place, like over and over again, like a cityscape or whatever. Now, I do definitely like building a map this size to showcase how much you can do with Dungeon Alchemist. But keep in mind, a map size and like detail and animation is directly proportionate to how powerful your computer. So the more powerful of a stream or of a machine you have, the more intense of map build. Right, my arms started hurting right at the end there, like a workout. You saw me rolling that thing up forever, right? Took forever. It's a big map. Oh my goodness. Do I have a printer for tapestries? That'd be great, right? Honestly, using tapestries, that'd be so cool. Y'all, I need you to help me think of some shenanigans to get up to with my immovable rod. I'm already thinking of some things. Like there's the very like obvious ones, right? But like using it as like a way to block a door or an anchor or something like that. Mike, I really don't think there's going to be any progress in that regard, to be honest with you. Like, we spoke to Ripper some time ago. He looked at DA, we looked at his stuff. And at the moment, Dungeon Alchemist really, as a whole, our development team, the owners who are also the developers, they basically have no intention of allowing Dungeon Alchemist to export as a full 3D, mainly because it was not designed with that intention. It's not as simple as flipping a switch and making it work. It's not like we're withholding it either. Basically, all the assets in Dungeon Alchemist were designed very cleverly. Instead of like a full 3D mesh, it's like a simple shape, like a rectangle, with like a very brilliantly like texture map on it. Basically a wallpaper, wrapping very simple objects with, to make them look more detailed. As a result of which, this often doesn't translate well to exporting for any type of 3D endeavor, beyond just viewing it in Dungeon Alchemist. And it's a bummer, I'll be honest with you. I know a lot of people want this. As the community manager, I hear feedback about this. Unfortunately, because Dungeon Alchemist was never designed with this, we'd have to essentially gut it from the ground up and change every asset, redesign every bit of it to work in that way. What would be more likely happening instead is we make our own accompanying VTT, Dungeon Alchemist VTT, that would work primarily with Dungeon Alchemist and provide direct support for the 3D nature of it. You know what I mean? Yeah, there's been, mostly talk from our community asking for it, never us saying, hey, we're going to. We've never really committed to doing it. And we looked into it and saw what it would take. And pretty much since then, Mike, anytime someone has asked, has given that line, is that it likely won't happen. Not at least us offering a 3D export for, some third party, mainly because it requires so much hands-on with that company to make it work. And something like Ripper's modules, Ripper could say, lose interest in it tomorrow. I highly doubt that's the case. He's great, don't get me wrong, but a lot of modules do lose support over time. And also, maybe Ripper, just the worst case scenario, something could happen to him, and then there's no longer his stuff, right? So what I'm getting at is we essentially want to make something end to end of our own that makes it easier for us to support it and provide an actual use. See, the problem with like most of the 3D VTTs or VR VTTs is they're like an enclosed ecosystem, right? I'm sure of you guys have seen like Tailspire, right? Tailspire is cool, but you can only build their maps inside Tailspire, right? You can't import a DA map. You can't, maybe you can import 3D models now. I know they have Hero Forge support, but I don't know about like your own, like we do, like with the asset importer, where you can just pretty much import anything. So I think with time, we will trend towards making our own virtual tabletop. This is the rumblings, the things I hear in the calls with the devs. I've heard them both say they want to do this, but it would take kind of Dungeon Alchemist coming into a winding down phase where we're leaving early access, and then we'd probably, start another Kickstarter directly supporting a standalone, virtual tabletop to support DA. See, Unspeakable Oath, we've already set the groundwork for our community to import their own assets. We've given a tool to do so, right? And then we've also allowed people to share the assets via the Steam Workshop. So we've kind of implemented these foundational steps, which would allow our community to supplement almost anything they want into it. People have already started making sci-fi, cyberpunk, let's see here. What's the other ones I've seen? Oh, Fallout and apocalyptic. Hey, Runamuck, how you doing? Right? It's getting there. You might be able to reach out to someone like Asmodeus and ask him. He's a very prolific sharer in our community, and he might be open to doing some sci-fi packs. For sure, you got to find a balance as a DM, the level of detail in the map versus the size and scale of the map, what your players can actually load. Not every one of your players are going to be able to load everything you put on the table for them if it's all online, right? So you want to make sure that you as a DM, whoa, that dice is massive. Prepare for these kind of things, these eventualities. Like often when I export a map that's animated, I'll export it as a standalone still map too and create a whole new scene in Foundry. And I do this because experience has taught me one of my players will likely not be able to load this map. So I do this to allow, this problem to be circumvented with a backup. Redundancy. It does. It steals session time from your players if you can't load a map effectively or one of them can't load it, right? And that's not a failing on your part. You just need to kind of remember that you should plan your sessions around the weakest link in the chain. There's always going to be that one player that has a problem loading because they have a potato PC that's run by a pair of hamsters, right? There's always that situation. I've run into it constantly. There's very few tables where there's like everybody on the table has a god tier PC for streaming and gaming, Harry, at this moment, I the best I can say is likely July sometime. At this moment, it's looking early July, but things can change on the fly momentarily, That's an interesting concept. So instead of doing the animation in the map, it would be on like the overlay layer. That's very, very interesting, like, approach to it. Often, it just takes some outside, like, suggestions like this. I mean, there's nothing stopping people from selling assets for DA already. People are doing it, my man. People are selling map packs and assets on things like Patreon and Fiverr and Buy Me a Coffee, those kind of things. There's a few creators in our community who make asset packs and sell them, but it's kind of it's a new thing. It would be cool if we had like a store or some kind of location where people could advertise their wares or put up a post saying, hey, a bounty, I want to buy this. I have $100 bounty for someone to make a map. But the problem is, we've discussed this in length. Doing it in our Discord isn't an option because we want to remove any chance of there being toxicity or competition. When you have a bunch of people vying for attention and money, it can start becoming very disingenuous and competitive and toxic really quick. But we do allow people to advertise if they have a stream, a Patreon, a YouTube, whatever, in our self-promo section. And we allow people to kind of, seek out commission work through our Discord, albeit as long as they're not advertising constantly. Yeah, we don't want any spam, right? Unspeakable. Yeah, I really only want to keep it as, that's the other thing too. If you have more storefronts, it becomes problematic. You know what I mean? Like there's hosting issues. Like I asked the devs, why don't we host maps on our own website? They're like, why would we do that when Steam does it for us for free? And I'm like, I guess that makes a lot of sense, actually. If there's a way to host it there, especially as a small indie company in one location, either Steam or, directly through DA, it makes sense. Mike, yes, optional DLC is something that'll likely be on the way in the future. Things like, sci-fi packs, cyberpunk, things like that, where we make a whole pack of assets, rooms, walls, windows, doors, floors, roofing, all of that, and then you would download it as a single pack that just plugs into Dungeon Alchemist and gives you the tools of Dungeon Alchemist with the the assets that you've just added into the workflow. Oh no, hosting costs are not cheap nowadays. They've gone up astronomically in the last decade. It's almost as if all the hosting companies were bought by major corporations and put the prices up so high only they could afford it. Nice. I've been checking out Wallpaper Engine. It was gifted, a copy was gifted to me. I thought, might as well make some wallpapers with maps, but I'm like so bad at it. Gotta learn. Whoa. I just gotta say, Revan just joined the stream in TikTok. It's so cool to have like an actual Revanite present. Somebody who understands the complexities of both the light and the dark side of the Force. Appreciate you being here, Revan. Huh. That's interesting. Run amok. Good to know. More graves here. And I'm thinking columbariums all the way down, or should I put in like a row of graves, a couple rows of graves here, save myself some time, because I put in like stacks of these. Filling those is going to take so much time. So much random items. Good to know. Thank you for letting me know, Harry. Really running out of grave variety. It's starting to frustrate me. Yeah, I'll do one of these. Casket. Sitting on. Put it in a thing like that too. Makes it nice. One of those. Yeah, there will be, but this area is going to be mostly packed and used up. There's got to be areas that feel old and like really used, right? That's how, like, I don't know if you have ever been to like a big graveyard or an old graveyard. They feel so like ancient. Parts of it feel like they haven't been visited in forever, you know, because anyone who remembered the people who died there all long ago died themselves. Kind of interesting to visit graveyards like that. I don't know if any of you ever have. It's quite interesting. Open graves are also a little bit difficult to do because we have these, let me show you. We have these pitted graves, right? And they dig a hole, but the problem is they only rotate on like 2 axes, so I got to do them on certain spots. And they're quite large. They can't be resized because they cut a hole in the ground. So essentially I'm kind of forced to deal with this one size and these 2 sides. So essentially I'm waiting until I'm in certain plots to use them. That is probably the best way to do it, Mondu, for sure. But I'm probably not going to be doing many over here because they're just so tiny. Man, this whole side's going to take forever. I feel like I'm never going to finish this. Wait. Got to speed this up. Okay. No one talk to me for the next 10. I'm just kidding. Oh. Well, I'll be honest with you. There's already like an expansion of headstones going to be in the next update that should help tremendously. Right now, I'm kind of forced to make custom headstones to really break up the diversity or like break up the monotony, especially on these pauper graves. So essentially, I have to get very creative with the headstones, which is frustratingly slow because there's not a lot of options. But the next update will definitely have like hundreds of them. Hundreds. It's because it uses a completely different codec, an older codec for the FGU. FGU doesn't support the latest codec for WebM. It supports the VP8 codec, not the VP9 codec. VP9 is much more optimized, takes much less time to export, and is much more refined, smaller, for higher output and quality. So the VP8 codec, which is all that Fantasy Grounds supports at the moment, is older, kind of outdated, larger, takes longer, just not as much, not as optimized. We were talking about headstones. So I mentioned while I was making this map that it's like, not only do we have a very limited selection of like grave headstones and markers, but most of them are kind of denominational towards a Christian denomination, which is strange enough in a fantasy setting. Like there's not Christianity in D&D or Pathfinder or anything really. So it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit, right? Nothing against the religion. It's just in these tabletop settings that doesn't really fit well all the time. Some settings it probably does. Now, that being said, I mentioned this to our devs and they were like, oh, okay, well, let's start making some variety. So essentially, they made a bunch of new headstones, and all the headstones have customization options where you can change out like the different faces to like a skull or a filigree or, you know, like a, whatever. And then each of those, there's different varieties of like headstones and graves, and then pair that with a new tool called the decal tool. Notice like the moss and the cracks and the dirt, that's actually added via the decal tool. So you can add a lot of customization to assets you couldn't in the past. Find a clip of the decal. So with the decal tool, you essentially can add images, custom or presets that we've created to add a lot of detail to your maps in moments. That's pretty cool, actually. Probably, yeah, you can stack them on top of each other to a degree. There is a custom decal option, though. I saw it recently in the recent builds. You can import a PNG image and use it as a custom decal. So you can put like a magic circle on the ground. It's essentially abstracts, but much faster with more customization. Yep. In the office hours stream recently, we were showing the latest alpha build of my like Fun with Objects update. I'll be honest with y'all, the closest I can give you to any information related to the update, Fun with Objects update, as we announced earlier this month or last month, I mean, that it's going to be split into two parts. So there was either split it into two parts or delay it till the end of the year. So the devs opted to split it into two parts, release part one in most likely in July, beginning of July, or hopefully before the end of July is the kind of main thought at the moment. That will include multi-level roofing and a few key features that have been, you know, worked out and developed. I'm hoping the decal tool will make it into there. Things like the abstract lighting will make it. Object scaling, universal object scaling will make it. The custom object brush most likely will make it. So there's a few things that will make it in the first portion of the update. And then portion B will include, you know, a few more things that just we couldn't get fine-tuned. Excuse me. Got so little sleep because I was so Excited about my character level up. I spent forever looking at it. Up till like midnight. So batch export is in there, but they're they're updating the user interface for the batch export. They realize using the old user interface with the new tools just didn't look right or feel right, and so they're updating the UI to make it a little bit more streamlined. Quentin is working on that right now, actually. What he's been working on the last few days. I'm not 100% certain if batch exports will make it in the first update or not. It seems logical that it would, but I'm waiting on a final list of what will and what won't. You know what I mean? In this clip, you can actually see quite well how easy it is to transition between floors. You can either use the new element on the right side to jump up and down between levels, or you can use the plus or minus key to do the same thing. Oh, I'm sure you can't, huh, Rev? I bet you it eats up a lot of time exporting and waiting on exports. At least with the batch export, you can kind of set it and forget it at night before you go to bed and wake up with most of it done, right? Question for you, Rev. Have you had any issues with your WebM export videos playback quality for Fantasy Grounds? Because I've been getting mixed reports of some people saying they're like super garbly, looking really like artifacted and broken, but also some people say they don't have a problem at all. So I don't know what the deal is. I've reported this to the devs as well, but it's kind of low priority as they've been focused on getting fun with objects fine-tuned. Gotcha. Well, you should watch the video of one of the WebMs and see what it looks like if you have a chance. Yes, you can, Chronicler. There's that sentence. Could be. I don't know if you saw these clips I was just sharing, but it kind of shows how you can quickly either remove sections of floor, make like a mezzanine or a balcony. There's like a whole new room type section that's just balconies, so you can draw them as that on the outside or make inner, you know, balconies like this. Atlam, you seem to be really smart about this stuff. Honestly, I don't even know the first thing about it. Not enough room in my brain to know how to like do all that stuff and then everything else in my life. You're really smart is what I'm saying. I respect it. Mad respect. Like, some of the people in this community are incredibly talented when it comes to, you know, 3D design and sculpting. And there's people who, you know, do programming on the side and like implement aspects of that into DA by automating things, and it's nuts. Our community is so incredibly talented. Oh man. I'm very excited for the next update because then people will finally stop asking me when is multi-level going to be available. That's the most thing I'm most excited for. The day I can finally tell people it's here. It's now. It's been available. What are you talking about? Don't be so modest. Oh gosh, BB. You shut your mouth. How are you doing? Welcome back, by the way. Goodness, you're back 1 minute and you're already causing me trouble. Speaking of ships. All I can say is the Fun with Objects update, whether it's the first portion or the second portion, one portion will come with kind of the foundational alpha beta shipyard. And what that means is, you know, we're going to be doing the high seas update eventually, and they're laying down kind of some foundational layers for the tooling and ability to build ships custom. I'm hyped you're here, BB. Missed you around these parts. Hope you're doing okay. That's good. That's good. Whenever my damn fam disappears for an extended amount of time, I always wonder what they've been up to. Who've they been mapping with? Now, I know y'all have lives, you have hobbies, you have work, you have your family, you have like a bunch of things to worry about before dropping in on Mapmaker Monday, right? So in the next update, you'll be able to kind of build these fun little ships, and there'll be a bunch of ship parts. This is one that was thrown together custom, and it looks kind of like something out of One Piece. Hello, Super Foxer. How you doing? Welcome, welcome. I am wonderful. Thank you for asking. I don't want to eat some candy. Hungry. Twizzlers filled twists. This moment in time is brought to you by Glad to hear it, BB. Well, at least that it's trending in a positive direction. Last I spoke to you, you said you were looking for new employment, I feel like. Am I remembering correctly there? And if that's the case, how is that going? Super Foxer, you're creating side quests for DMs so they can add them to their campaigns. Like a module? Something that you put on like Drive-Thru RPG? Are you doing map packs with it? I'm just curious. Can I get some more information? I love this clip because it shows this like innocuous little cabin, and under the rug, it's like Goonies style adventure. Before you know it, you're off to find One-Eyed Willie's treasure. Well, shoot, I'd have tons of advice if it was map related, because that's kind of my focus here, is map making. But when it comes to side quests, you know, something to consider is a side quest needs to be enticing enough to draw the players away from their main storyline, right? So one thing I often think about when I'm putting that into into my storytelling, what would draw my players away from the main quest line? Often it's divided into several categories. Money. If the money is good, they'll drop whatever they're doing and go after it, right? Or if the item, the reward, let's just put money and reward in the same. So excuse me. If you have something that's a good reward, it'll entice them. The other thing is something that appeals to their nature. The problem is every table's nature is different, so it's up to the DM to discern what would really entice them. Sometimes it's saving the damsel or the family or the child into distress for, you know, your lawful goods. That's usually the way to go. If it's some potential of something to be stolen, you know, your murder hobos will jump on that, right? You need to understand that your table at as best you can. So I think offering some diversity in your types of side quests, maybe even a roll table with them, is a good way to offer diversity to different DMs and different play styles for every table. Like a roll table that would be like, hey, this is some random encounter they'd run into that would spur on this side quest, but there's, you know, maybe a roll table of 12 options, something like that. Side quests, though, are a great way to keep the party like engaged in doing things, especially when the main hook is warn them out, or maybe at the moment the main hook, they don't know what they're supposed to do. There's often instances like that where the party is kind of like at a wall. So a side quest to kind of refresh them and do something else, get them off the beaten path, is a good way to go. But remember, at the end of the side quest, it needs to end dramatically to a point where there's nothing else to follow up. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to bump my mic. I prefer not to be sent files or anything like that on stream, mainly because we're focusing on maps and Dungeon Alchemist here. But we can talk about your plans and discussions here in chat. So you can tell us what you're planning for your side quest, and we can discuss it. Okay, let's keep some. Not mean that. Zone down. cram this, goodness, cram this walkway in here. It's nothing personal, Super Foxer. I just, at the moment, my focus is either map making or showcasing our tool, Dungeon Alchemist. So we can discuss your side quest plans and stuff like that. That's why I asked if you're going to be including any map packs or anything like that with it, because that's usually what we discuss here in chat. How to make maps, how to make maps more enticing, how to weave them into your storyline or side quests. You know, BB, it sounds so much like you have lupus. Like, I hate to just say, like, hey, you have this, but just hearing you talk about it, like, it sounds like that. Just mainly because I've experienced that in my own home front. My wife has lupus, and it took us forever, doctors, to root it out because it has so many, like, random symptoms that kind of, like, could be other things, right? Dude, Gem Knight, no problems whatsoever. I am happy you got a new job and that you're hustling and I'm hoping making some paper, right? You're making some money, right, with your new job. The thing is like, dude, your priorities in life should always be making sure you got a roof over your head, food on the table, and your family's happy and healthy, right? After that, it's your friends, your hobbies, and then finally, Dungeon Alchemist. Okay? Don't worry about me until you got everything taken care of in your life, and no need for an apology. Fibromyalgia? Honestly, you should just ask for a panel on lupus because the symptoms sound so familiar. Fatigue, chronic pain, okay? And the thing is like it can affect other things, like your heart can have palpitations. Okay, you can get sick constantly because you're immunocompromised. So the other illnesses pop up and you're not sure, is it tied to this or is it that? You know, it's crazy. It's so frustrating dealing with it. And I'm not trying to be like a armchair doctor here, but just when you talk about it, it sounds so reminiscent. And the thing is one of the first people I talked to when I was telling my wife symptoms to my family, they're like, it's lupus, you should get it checked out. And we're like, oh, it can't be lupus, but it was. And so I often regret that I didn't heed their advice and look into it like right away. Let's see here. Shady Vendor asks for the party to gather 2 keys. You get cool armor, party helps Shady Vendor. Shady Vendor gets possessed by cool armor and gets defeated by the party. Party gains cool armor. Interesting. So the cool armor possessed them, so it's cursed, right? Can I clarify? Dude, that was my first concern. If the armor has, if it's cursed or has issues with it, only crazy party members would want it. There's actually a member in my party who is like, hey, if we ever run into cursed items, I'll take them. I'm like, oh gosh. Okay, fine. Gem Knight, dude, that makes me happy to hear. Like, the fact that you're doing well, that's all that matters. I think I could put... Problem, I don't want to, like, put in graves and they not line up. And I don't want, like, a year of columbariums to fill. Gotta make some decisions here. Big boy decision. Columbariums fit so well in this space. Why I did them, and I thought, hey, way more graves. That's like 20 graves. What is it? 18 graves per. And then each side is 18. So 36 graves every, 10, 15 feet. That's definitely sardining them in, right? Am I right there, or am I just crazy? Don't mind me talking to myself. Gosh, I can't wait to get more like headstones and grave markers and stuff, because yeah, I am like getting kind of the point where I don't know what to do with half of these. Cross. So big. Smaller. Let's see, let's do thing. Work beam. Okay. More graves. Here we go. Putting graves in the ground. That means people are underground. Feel sad, but I can't feel bad because I gotta put more graves on the ground. Hmm. That one. And I'm gonna reuse, probably, let's reuse this. Getting really creative with all these grave markers though. Oh, goodness. Yeah, Rev, it's quite a bit to dive into, man. You know, you can always hop in their Discord. They're really supportive and helpful. I'm just noticing my chat, multi-stream chat is crashed. Give me one moment. Holy cow. Hey, Moore, how you doing, buddy? Peace. Awesome. See you later. I swear I make my kid cringe so much. Oh, for sure, More, for sure. Okay, I just saw my chat wasn't moving, so I refreshed it. It's fixed. I answered it for Rev earlier, by the way. Dude, Moore, was the winner of the giveaway excited? Sorry, dude, that I was like out of touch. I was like dead to the world for a few days. Like I was in bed asleep. And then when I was awake, I was just dealing with stuff for the family, like taking care of business. You know what I mean? Joe, that's a good question. Joe on TikTok asks, I love this, but it can be used in 3D for players, or is it just a top down? So traditionally, when you play tabletop games such as D&D, it's in a top down format, correct? Your maps are pretty much always in top down. Dungeon Alchemist allows you to build your map in a 3D space so you have much more control over the detail and various aspects. at different angles, but it does export in a top-down. So its primary design is to be exported in top-down for either print or TV tabletop, projector tabletop. You can even export it for virtual tabletops such as Foundry, Fantasy Grounds, Roll20, Above VTT, and many others. So with that in mind, okay, you build your map in 3D, giving you much more control over the detail and various aspects. And then people go, well, wait, if you're exporting it in top down, you'll never see some of these details, right? I'm putting all these things in this columbarium. Most of it will never be seen in top down. Well, you have the option to jump into this little camera here and take cinematic screenshots or video at various angles to use as handouts for your players. Additionally, you can pop into the map as a first-person token, walk around and stream that to your players over, say, Discord or Zoom or whatever's most convenient for you, allowing you to get unprecedented view access for your players in a map that they are normally in top-down only. Glad to hear it, More. Glad to hear it. Oh man, soon, huh? Man, honestly, it's crazy that no one's pulled it yet. You tried to add it to Foundry, but the quality was so bad. Now let's talk about that. Your export settings can make a lot of difference in the quality, right? And remember, quality is more of a perception thing. So us as DMs, I think we tend to be very fixated on details. We're very detail oriented, right? We notice all the minutia of stuff. And that's part of the reason we're DMs and GMs in the first place. We're kind of cursed to be detail oriented. As a result of which we notice things in maps that our players often would never even notice or care about. I spend tons of time building out maps doing things that no player would ever notice or care about, because 90% of the time they're there to kick goblin butt and collect loot. Right? They don't really notice the heavy details. They don't notice maybe a shadow in a certain place. One of our viewers in stream, he likes to say a phrase called sit moth, and it stands for couch in the middle of the hallway. He once made a map and accidentally didn't notice there was a couch in the middle of the hallway, and neither did his players. They ran right past it, because more often than not, when they're in battle, they're not too focused on that kind of stuff or looting. Now, that being said, that's not an excuse for quality. Dungeon Alchemist does have really high quality maps. It's possible, depending on the size of map or your export settings, something was overlooked and it made the video or the actual map export look a little grainy. Okay, so you had really cool animations like the Magic Cauldron. Gotcha. Continue. Can you tell me maybe how big the map was? Maybe like width by height? Was it, say, 20 by 20? Was it 100 by 100? And then did you export it as, I'm assuming, animated to get use of the animations? Did you export it as an MP4 or a WebM? Lastly, which... excuse me. Do you recall what DPI you exported as? So your DPI, depending on the size of your map and if it's animated or not, a lot of different things can come into account when you're exporting. So for a small map with Foundry, you could probably just export as a WebM, right? Set it to 150 DPI. If it's under, say, 20 by 20 or even 40 by 40, you can get away with 150 DPI, no problem. When you increase the DPI, that increases the dots per inch, and then you're also doing several, like, 30 frames per second? So you have hundreds of dots per inch and 30 frames per second, depending on the size of the map. That can end up being gigabytes in size, file size for a video. So if it's a smaller map, definitely up the DPI, but if it's a bigger map like this one here, I would never want to export this with a high DPI. I'd definitely go 72 DPI. Honestly, and I don't mean to pass the buck in saying you did something wrong, but with animated exports, it's tricky and it's a new technology altogether. companies like Fantasy Grounds, Fan Foundry, they've only added this feature in the last 2 years. It's a very new thing, and it takes some time to fine tune. You may have to export a couple times to really get it right. And then on the back end, you got to think of the production. You know, some players may have trouble loading an animated map. Maybe they have poor internet or a bad computer. Okay. Don't want to pin the blame on them either, but you always got to kind of set up your production around the weakest link in your player chain. There's always going to be that one player that has an issue, right? So for animated maps, I usually recommend exporting it as a still map and setting up a separate scene as a backup, just in case if that one player can't load it, you don't spend 10 minutes trying to fix it. You just load into the backup map. You know what I mean? Anyway, Joe, I hope you can figure that out. And honestly, if you're struggling or still having issues, drop into our Discord. You can drop into our support or question forum, spin up a thread, and myself, other staff members, moderators, even community members will jump on and try and offer you some support and guidance. Yeah, well, the reason being, Lord Rev, is MP4 has a size limit. You can't go above a certain resolution with MP4. It hits a max resolution above, like, I think it's like 4K or something. WebM is the way to go because it can max out its resolution far above. It can continue going as big as the map goes. WebM, it has no limitations with resolution. Does that make sense? That's why I recommend it. Basically, MP4 is really only used for smaller maps. But yeah, once you go by like 4,000 by 4,000 resolution, MP4 stops working, and you need to go straight to WebM. That's part of the reason we support it. Because maps are wildly different in size and shape, not necessarily matching traditional resolutions that you would use on like a TV, you know? Honestly, I just do WebM for everything. It's more universal. That way you never have to worry about it. Also, I prefer WebM because if you use a green screen background, you can actually remove the green screen and do like an alpha layer with WebM, allowing you to make like custom tiles too. WebM's just a much more versatile video file. I think MP4 was just more commonly used and first used, so it's like there. You know what I mean? It's just the most prevalent like video file, but it's already starting to get like replaced by newer codecs and stuff. Excuse me. Excuse me. Man. What was I gonna just pull up? Oh, a tile. There we go. I remember. So this is gonna get really bright. I'm just warning y'all. So I captured this drill on the green screen background. Look at my eyes. Ah! And then I exported it as a WebM, right? And then I put that into a video editor, and I was able to remove the green screen backdrop and export it as WebM and remove the alpha layer so it can act like a PNG tile that's animated. I'm really proud of how this turned out because I was able to put this drill onto a map as a, you know, an object that can move around and be resized. So I kind of anticipated my players would find one of these drills and commandeer it and want to use it. And there's tracks in place to drive it around on, so why not? There's always some new format coming out that's better. That's the problem, though. Staying up to date with them, licensing them, and adjusting your program to it takes a lot of work, manpower, and money. You know that, Asmodeus. Now, that being said, like, I've been trying to convince the devs to offer transparent exports for, you know, whatever. And I said WebP is the way to go because it's such a simple format. It's small, much more versatile than PNG. And PNG is a great format, but the problem is it's huge beyond certain sizes, right? So the devs were hesitant to use that, but I think they're pushing to just use PNG anyway because people want transparent option exports for like foreground layers primarily is the main reason, or to make tiles. That's the two main reasons, foreground layers and tile creation. No, I think he's talking about at his work, they use AVIF. Remember, Asmodeus doesn't work for Dungeon Alchemist. He's a volunteer moderator for Dungeon Alchemist. Right? I am a dwarf and I'm digging a hole. Asmodeus is pretty smart, pretty talented. He works for Pixar, so he must know what he's doing, right? Nice, Rev. I often wonder if we could ever, like, maybe expand the community team. It'd be pretty cool. Being an army of one is great, but also sometimes it's a burden. Now, that being said, I'm not saying I can't do my job, but it would be cool to see how much we could do with a bigger community team. You know what I mean? But the whole point of this was it's like it's possible for anyone to make that asset. If they use the green screen backdrop, you can export an animated asset on top of it and then save that as a tile. No, I know, but I know it can sound like, oh no, maybe he's overburdened or whatever. I just think, you know, I can only do so much as one person, and I wonder what I'd be able to do with a team. You know what I mean? Like what kind of stuff we could do for the community with another, even another person. You know what I mean? I know my limits. I'm definitely okay to admit that I have limitations and I can only do so much as one person. So more or less just saying like what it could be. It'd be crazy to have more, you know, it'd be awesome. Anyway. That's kind of the, I don't know. It's like, hey, if you had double the resources and money in your life, you could do a lot more, right? That's kind of the mentality. Don't we all wish we had a bigger budget at work or in our personal lives? Yeah. Yeah, I'll look like it. No. I'll delete those and I'll fix them later. As someone who's single-handedly been the community team for 3 years at a project, yes, that's the kind of feeling. It would just be great to expand the team and do more, you know? I feel like I do so much as is, and it'd just be that much better if I had that much more resources, you know? So slightly. I could also turn on the grid and just see where it's at. That might help. I hate how some objects in DA rotate around their edge and some rotate around their center. Pick a lane already, guys. Would be great, right? Oh man. You know what, y'all? I'm gonna miss you after the stream today. We won't see each other till at least Wednesday at the latest. Soonest, I should say. So I think, you know, some companies could totally gatekeep like who they hire by forcing someone to turn in a physical resume, like a printed resume. Because it like basically like a whole generation of people don't have printers anymore or don't even know how to use them. You hide the resume in the damn file. It'd be hilarious. I'm not gonna lie. I I don't know. I think it's A for effort there for sure. Think if I should put another row on this outside edge, or I think I'm probably gonna just do like a wall or a gate or something, and maybe some benches. Sides so people sit. So didn't anyone throw up any suggestions earlier for what I should do with the immovable rod I got this last session? Could be like a cool impromptu anchor. Great way to like barricade a door. Could do all sorts of really random stuff. But remember, I only have one of them. So let's talk about what I could do with one. Hold down someone for interrogation. So you just like, and then they're stuck. Unless they basically rip themselves in half. £8,000 treehouse at least, right? But then I'd lose it, right? If I use it to, you know, clothesline people or trip them, then it's there and I lose it, right? Can't go get it. Part of the problem with doing something like that. Oh, alrighty, everyone. It's time to wrap it up. Had a lot of fun hanging out with y'all today. Oh, that's smart. That's an interesting one. I didn't see that in chat. I must have missed it. I am a halfling. Maybe I could just use it as a portable dancing pole. Honestly, though, like it's funny the kind of shenanigans I'll probably get up into with this thing because I end up doing really weird creative stuff. Cool. Alrighty, we got some additions here. Thank you everyone for hanging out today through this, you know, super fun edition of Mapmaker Monday. I, again, appreciate everyone who tuned in, whether you were lurking, watching, actively chatting, whatever. You all mean the world to me, and I hope you tune into our future streams. We meet up every Wednesday in Discord for our office hours stream. Meet up every Saturday for a stream opposite Saturdays of each other. There's different themes. So this upcoming Saturday is the Dam Challenge stream, which is on the road. Remember, if you are wanting to enter our bi-weekly map making contest, the Dam Challenge, the theme is on the road. Using on the road as inspiration, make a map of any shape or size. Submit that to the Dam Challenge channel. Make sure you follow the rules pinned at the top of the channel to qualify. If your map is the winning map, you get a $10 Hero Forge gift card as a prize. And your map is the first map featured promptly on the Dam Challenge stream, giving you roughly 20-30 minutes of FaceTime with all the viewers. Great way to kind of flex your map maker muscle and also just really challenge yourself to new heights as a map maker and cartographer. Uh, these challenges are usually designed to be open-ended, give you a lot of creative freedom, but also create something that you may not normally do in your normal campaign, so pushing you outside of your comfort zone. I encourage everyone to participate because it's actually a lot of fun. And a lot of interesting maps are usually shared because of this. Hey, Tim Walter, thank you for being here, man. Appreciate you. And I appreciate you all for participating in today's stream. Mapmaker Monday is definitely my favorite stream of the week. It's always fun to kick off Monday with a fun hangout sesh with my damn fam, building a map, answering questions. It's a great day. Thank you everyone for being here. Again, my name is Mac, the community manager for Dungeon Alchemist. Dungeon Alchemist is a map making utility, and a map making tool and immersion utility available on Steam. You can try Dungeon Alchemist out with our free demo, so you can test drive it on your system and see if it works with your hardware before you spend any time or money on it. Great way to test drive it, so to speak. Additionally, we have several streams a week where you can tune in, ask questions in real-time AMA format, where I will answer your questions and do my best to provide you with real-time support. Thank you everyone for being here. And remember, if you can't tune into a stream in the future, there's always our social media or Discord. Great place to get support from myself, staff members, moderators, or other community members. Thank you again, everyone, for tuning in. We'll see you next time. I give a damn. Mac out. Bye. Yeah, Dad got here just in time for me to say goodbye to him. See you, Dag.